This colossal ship is one of the most incredible machines on the planet, but it's actually designed to sink. Weird, huh? Stick around to find out why, alongside a whole host of other machines, both great and small, that are going to truly blow your mind. From giant chainsaws to star-powered generators and even boats with legs. Let's check out the most incredible machines you won't believe really exist. Major Lazer. While lasers are a hallmark of science fiction, what if I told you there's a machine right here on Earth that can produce a laser so powerful that real-world scientists are using it to change the very fabric of our world? More commonly known as NIF, the National Ignition Facility at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California is home to the largest laser in the world. Operational since March 2009, NIF uses powerful lasers to produce nuclear fusion, which is when atoms are slammed into each other so hard they combine to form a larger atom, releasing an insane amount of energy in the process. That energy can, in theory, be collected, mostly as heat, and used to power the world. But how does it work? The process begins somewhere called the master oscillator room, in which an optical fiber laser generates a low-energy pulse of light. The pulse gets split into 48 different beams and carried on fiber optic cables into specialized pre-amplifying devices, which, by using some mind-boggling light-bending and filtering tech, multiply the pulse's energy 10 billion times. The beams then make their way through several sets of specialized glass amplifiers, which are surrounded by over 7,000 devices called flash lamps. Standing at almost 6 feet tall, these flash lamps pump bright white light into the amplifier slabs, boosting the laser beam's energy even further. On the last stop before reaching their final target, the beams pass through the final optics assemblies, or FOA. The FOA chamber houses special crystals that convert the infrared lasers into more energetic ultraviolet light, which is necessary to create the high temperatures needed to achieve nuclear fusion. Finally, after journeying almost a mile from the master oscillator room, NIF's split laser beams reach their target. Inside the target chamber, a tiny capsule, often made of diamond and containing two forms of hydrogen, is positioned inside a cylindrical X-ray oven called a Hallrum, which is about the size of a pencil eraser. By this point in their journey, NIF's powerful lasers are capable of heating the Hallrum to over 5 million degrees Fahrenheit, which causes it to emit powerful X-rays toward the capsule. The ensuing heat disintegrates the capsule's surface, causing a massively powerful implosion that heats and compresses the hydrogen atoms inside so much some of them fuse together to create helium, and a huge amount of energy is given off. Long story short, fusion complete. The craziest part? This entire process happens in just a few billionths of a second, resulting in the reaction of the kinds of energy found in the cores of stars and planets. But what's it all really for? Scientists study the bursts of energy created by NIF to understand nuclear fusion, as well as attempting to use it to achieve ignition. Ignition is what happens when the fusion reaction sustains its own heat, generating more energy than was required to initiate it. This is exactly what makes fusion so appealing. Due to the high energy required to achieve nuclear fusion, the power generated usually fizzles out pretty quickly, making sustaining it extremely hard. But if we can figure out a way to do so, it's kind of free energy. But here's the kicker. In December 2022, scientists at NIF were the first to achieve this kind of ignition, and even did it again in July 2023 with an even higher energy yield than the first. Nuclear fusion ignition has been described as the holy grail of clean energy, as it produces zero carbon emissions. So, if scientists could figure out a way to sustain it and then harness the energy, it might change our world's future. But whatever the best methods turn out to be, most scientists agree that we're unlikely to see widespread nuclear fusion power plants until around 2050. I, for one, am still very excited to see what the NIF laser will achieve in the meantime. Are you? Ships that flip. On first glance, you might be thinking this looks like the upended Titanic. But what if I told you that's how this particular ship is supposed to look? Officially known as the Floating Instrument Platform, the Flip Ship was specifically designed to, sink itself. Kinda. Created by the U.S. Navy in partnership with the Marine Physical Laboratory in 1962, the Flip Ship essentially functions as a giant floating science lab. But before we get into why this ship flips, how exactly does this sinking maneuver work? The entire transformation of the Flip Ship from horizontal to vertical takes around 28 minutes. And trust me, this sight is truly something to behold. Much like on board a submarine, the Flip is equipped with large compartments known as ballast tanks, which can be filled with or emptied of seawater. When Flip is in transit mode, these ballast tanks are filled with air, meaning the structure floats horizontally like a conventional ship atop the ocean waves. To initiate the flip, the ballast tanks on one end of the platform are filled with seawater, causing that side of the ship to sink vertically into the water and raising the buoyant opposite end above the surface. Once at the desired depth, the ballast tanks are sealed and the flip achieves neutral buoyancy, where it can float in a stable position. When flipped to its vertical position, much of the ship's structure is submerged in the deeper, more stable layers of the ocean, meaning the ship is less impacted by the surface motion of the ocean waves. This allows scientists on board to conduct experiments and take measurements of things like the topography of the seabed, the behavior of sound underwater, and ocean wave patterns in a more stable environment, allowing for more accurate readings. Even the sinks, toilets, and shower heads have been specifically designed to be usable no matter what rotation state the flip is in. Who knew ocean research could be so trippy? Staying on the theme of ships that do the truly unexpected, have you ever seen a boat lift itself out of the water? Lift boats like this are self-propelled and self-elevating vessels that are specifically designed to stand up out of the water. These elevated platforms allow the lift boats to be used in lots of offshore activities, from construction to equipment storage to mineral mining and even ocean floor drilling. Thanks to their typically flat decks, they can also provide a handy landing surface for helicopters out at sea. Also known as jack boats, most lift boats will feature 3 or 4 distinct limbs called pipe legs, which are built to be able to work in waters of over 220 feet deep. The legs are controlled using a jacking system which lowers them to the sea floor, where they can be securely attached, either on a pre-built platform or by penetrating deep into the ground to provide a stable base. Now that's one leggy display I could eyeball all day. Huh? Oh, right, on with the video. Magic telescopes. While there's no doubt we've seen some incredible machines so far, this next one is quite literally magic. The Major Atmospheric Gamma Imaging Cherenkov Telescopes, or MAGIC for short, are a set of 2 55-foot mirror telescopes positioned on top of a 7,800-foot mountain at the Roque de los Muchachos Observatory in the Canary Islands. But these telescopes aren't just stargazers. In fact, MAGIC's job is to detect intergalactic explosions. When gamma rays from distant exploding stars collide with the Earth's atmosphere, they create a very faint burst of light, called Cherenkov radiation. MAGIC telescopes have big mirrors, which are aligned using these awesome-looking lasers, and these mirrors collect Cherenkov radiation and focus it onto special detectors that turn it into electrical signals. Scientists then analyze these signals to find out where the gamma rays came from. as well as what produced them. To give you an idea of just how far into space the MAGIC telescope can reach, back in 2006, they detected cosmic rays coming from Quasar 3C279, a celestial body located 5 billion light-years away from Earth. To put that into perspective, 5 billion light-years is the equivalent of just about 29 billion trillion miles. Darn, that spaces me out just to think about. Extreme excavators. You may associate Hyundai with sleek and sophisticated cars, but one of its machines provides more of a down and dirty experience, but no less impressive. This is Hyundai's HX300A-L, a 30-ton digger with a 33-foot reach, which is okay on its own, but it's the giant chainsaw mode. Yes, chainsaw, where this beast and others like it really shine. With this 4-ton chain trench attachment, excavators of this size and power can literally chainsaw through the earth like butter. Now that's scarily satisfying, but we're just getting started. While smaller excavators like the HX300 can work multiple jobs, some larger excavators are designed for one very big job only. The largest excavator in the world is the Caterpillar 6090 FS excavator, a 32-foot tall machine of pure, incredible power. This huge excavator uses 4,500 horsepower to fulfill its job as a hydraulic mining shovel, lifting huge masses of rock and ore material at mining sites. Armed with a 14,529-gallon bucket to lift a maximum load of 103 tons, this gargantuan machine weighs a mega 1,102 tons overall, which is about the same weight as an average American house 7 times over. Yeesh! Look, lasers that can cause nuclear fusion are great and all, but a vehicle that can bench press an entire neighborhood? Now I'm impressed. Plow power. We've already plowed through some pretty incredible machines, but how about we take a quick pit stop to watch, well, a truly awesome plow? Wedge plows are specifically designed with a knife-edge nose used to move snow off rail tracks. The Rock Island Wedge snowplow, for instance, is a 95-ton steel slicer that uses a 16-foot blade to cut right through the snow. And looking damn cool while doing it, I might add. And while they typically depend on the power of several other trains behind them to propel them forward along the tracks, wedge plows can force through snow at up to 50 miles per hour. Another type of snowplow are the rotary plows, which are pushed along the tracks by other trains. However, as opposed to pushing the snow to the side, rotaries use large circular rotating blades to funnel the snow up and away from the tracks running alongside hilly terrain. But both the wedge and rotary plow have nothing on this dark horse. So named for its jet black helmet-like face, the Darth Vader snowplow is a 53-foot-long, 15-foot-tall snowplow, and it most certainly is a force to be reckoned with. Vader is another type of plow called a spreader ditcher, which is used to clear all types of trackside debris, but can double as a deep snow saber. Along with its whopping 80-ton frame, this spreader ditcher uses its massive bat-like wings to sweep aside up to 16 feet of snowfall. True to how only a Sith deals in absolutes, the Darth Vader ditcher deals in absolute force when blasting snow off of train tracks. Hadrian X. There may always be disagreements over what the true building blocks of society should be. However, the debate over who will be putting them in place might be easier to settle. Meet Hadrian X, a construction robot manufactured by Fast Brick Robotics that can build a house entirely by itself. Hadrian X is made up of a large 98-foot extendable boom arm mounted onto a 27-ton truck, which is connected to a separate van that houses the machine's controls. Before starting work, Hadrian X's software reviews CAD files, which are computerized drawings, blueprints, and renders of a building's design, which it then uses to create a 3D model to program itself to construct. Once Hadrian is ready to go, a telehandler loads pallets of specially designed blocks into the back of the truck. These blocks are then picked up, cut to size, and fed into the end of the boom, where construction adhesive is applied. While FBR, the robot's manufacturers, have managed to keep the exact composition of their specialist blocks and adhesive under wraps, the blocks, known as fast bricks, are about 12 times the size of regular house bricks, but weigh less per square foot. Not only that, but the adhesive solidifies in just 45 minutes, as opposed to the 24-plus hours required of regular bricklaying mortar. While the materials are a bit of a mystery, we do know that the key tech behind Hadrian's bricklaying capabilities is something they call dynamic stabilization technology. This highly accurate software continuously monitors and adjusts the position of the robot arm's wrist to make sure it's always at the correct point in 3D space. But as clever as Hadrian is, it's not completely taking away from the human element of construction, as the machine is programmed to flag any misplaced blocks to the construction team for manual adjustment. That said, I wouldn't get too confident about human bricklayers' ongoing job security. In September 2023, the next generation of Hadrian X was unveiled and put to the test. Featuring an extended 105-foot arm, the next-gen Hadrian includes an improved shuttle delivery service that funnels blocks directly into Hadrian's hand. With all these features at full tilt, the Hadrian X can lay up to 1,000 bricks an hour, compared to the 300 to 500 bricks per day human construction worker average. Ah, how comforting. Yet another industry where it seems human workers will soon be obsolete. But before we reach that point, I suppose we can take some enjoyment in how cool the robot looks at doing our jobs. Ha 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 ha. Making waves. We already know fossil fuels are being increasingly kicked to the curb as environmental scientists look for new, renewable energy sources. But if the latest and greatest is wave energy, this is a wave power plant, a machine built to demonstrate the potential to harvest energy from sea waves. Constructed in 2012 as part of an experiment to test the viability of wave power in Brazil, this wavy machine consists of two main parts. Attached to the end of a 72-foot-long mechanical arm, these giant buoys, called floaters, sit on the water's surface, moving up and down with the waves. This up and down motion moves mechanical arms that activate a hydraulic pump system. The wave-induced movement of the system fires a continuous pressurized stream of water to spin a turbine. Thanks to the principles of electromagnetic induction, this spinning turbine, which extends to a shaft with a magnetic cylindrical encasement, causes a changing magnetic field within the attached generator, and that induces an electric current in wires coiled around the shaft, which can be used or stored. Since the project's construction, numerous wave power plants have been popping up all over the world, like this machine from Eco Wave Power in Gibraltar. There's something so cool about harvesting the natural, massive strength and power of the sea like that, don't you think? While it's clear that we'll be in some pretty hot water if we don't make the most of renewable energy, let's hope that wave-generated energy continues to, well, make waves. Crane of the High Seas. When the MV Seawall capsized off the coast of South Korea in April 2014, authorities were tasked with figuring out how to get the gargantuan ship back upright. At the time of capsizing, the MV Seawall weighed in at over 6,800 tons and is said to have been loaded with more than 3 times its legal cargo limit. Not a small task at all to flip it into a salvageable position. and it took authorities 4 whole years to find a machine big enough for the task. But that's where our next machine comes in. Feast your eyes on the Hyundai 10,000. This mega claw is a sheer leg crane barge, a heavy lifting crane structure fixed to a barge used to lift objects out at sea. The Hyundai 10,000 itself is made up of 2 590-foot-long crane booms, supported by 2 sets of 230-foot-high back supports. These are equipped with 64 wire ropes, each spanning more than 18,000 feet in length, that thread through a series of colossal hoisting winches. All of this runs down to 8 sets of enormous hooks, and the machine's movement requires 4 mammoth generators on board the vessel and 2 more on land. You know, I'm starting to think my brother Jimmy was lying when he said he could lift a giant boat by hand. When lifting the MV Seawall back in 2018, the Hyundai 10,000 was hooked onto 33 steel beams that were used to slowly pull the boat upright over the course of 3 hours. And thanks to being vertically secured to the seabed below, the machine managed it all without toppling itself over. An impressive workout, but not an all-time PB for this super-powered crane. As its name suggests, Hyundai claimed the 10,000 has the capacity to cleanly lift over 10,000 tons. And in 2021, the machine left jaws on the floor when it successfully lifted the 9,100-ton topside of the King's Quay, an offshore floating platform off the coast of Seoul. Now that's just showing off. Earth, flame, water. After all that ocean talk, how about we plant ourselves back down on solid ground? If I told you some of the best farmers in the world are torching their fields with monster flamethrowers, I bet you'd think I'd gone mad. While it sounds crazy, this flaming machine is actually a big reason farms the world over are growing more crops than ever before. The growth of weeds in agricultural fields can seriously affect its overall yield, as these unwanted plants will compete with the wanted crops for light, water, and nutrients. Previously, farmers had turned to herbicides, which contain toxic chemicals that kill and deter weeds. However, these have been found to be pretty harmful to the environment and can contaminate the air, water supplies, as well as unintentionally wiping out desirable plant species. The problem is, if left uncontrolled, weeds would cause up to $43 billion worth of agricultural losses each year in the United States and Canada alone. So, farmers still need some way to get rid of them. This brings us back to these torched-up tractors, which are now being used by organic farmers as an alternative to chemical weed control. Known as flame weeders, these machines are essentially tractors with a row of flamethrowers installed that funnel compressed gas like propane through a series of tubes and outlets to blast weeds on an empty field before planting new crops. It looks pretty crazy, but flame weeding essentially destroys the cell structures in the leaves of the weeds, which prevents them from growing, at least for a good while. Whoa, who knew farming could be this fire? Sticking with the theme of controlling nature's elements, let's move from flames that can defeat weeds to extreme hoses that can defeat fire. Check this out. Deluge guns, or deck guns, are a firefighter's best friend. With a simple rotating flow valve that's manually controlled by the operator, these water cannons can shoot anywhere from 500 up to a massive 9,000 gallons per minute. With a range of 1,600 feet and a top force of 120 psi, who knew firefighter jets would make even Aquaman jealous? What more evidence do you need that firefighters are real-life superheroes? Best of all, thanks to their built-in wheels, once the day's been saved, these bad boys can simply be disconnected from the water pump source and attached to the back of a vehicle where they can be towed off in a heroic red and yellow train. Off to the next heroic mission. Method 2. There's no doubt that robots are well on their way to taking over multiple industries. But did you know that there are some machines out there that can work alongside us hand in hand? This is the Method 2, a giant human-controlled exoskeleton that provides the wearer with real-life superpowers. Exoskeletons are essentially real-life supersuits that can enhance the body's ability via a collection of motors, levers, and hydraulics. If you're thinking it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie, that's probably because Vitaly Bulgarov, who designed the initial concept, is also the mind behind numerous movie robot concepts, from Transformers to Terminator. With each arm weighing in at 326 pounds, this marvelous machine, which investors have poured over $200 million into developing, clearly has the potential to bring us closer to the dream of mech suit WrestleMania. But shockingly enough, mech wrestling is not what this exogiant's true purpose is. The true intention behind the Method 2 is to provide us humans with an alternative way to venture into dangerous terrain, like in the aftermath of natural disasters. The metal beast can reportedly lift over 1.5 tons, so you can easily see why it might be useful in rescue operations involving collapsed buildings or rock slides. While there's not been much news on Method 2 since 2018, we have seen prototypes in action. So here's to hoping this sci-fi dream will someday become a reality. Super subs. If you've ever seen The Hunt for Red October, you'll be all too familiar with the gargantuan power of submarines. In the movie, the Soviet Union launches a new sub with a mysterious silent propulsion system called a Caterpillar drive. And while that system is a work of fiction, engineers in the real world have come up with the closest thing, allowing ultra stealth and efficiency in the form of the Propeller Boss Vortex Diffuser, or PBVD. The PBVD is a cylindrically shaped system that fits over the central point of a submarine's propeller. As a regular propeller spins, the water flow at its end creates a vortex of water, which can cause drag, meaning more engine power and fuel is needed to maintain speed. The PBVD and other similar tools, however, scatter the vortex streams behind a submarine, preventing them from bunching together into a single, larger, more drag-heavy vortex. Not only does the reduction of vortex drag help to conserve valuable fuel, but it also contributes to a quieter operation. When it comes to military submarines, avoiding detection is vitally important. And put bluntly, silence equals survival. Subs avoid sonar detection using things like rubber coating tiles that absorb sonar waves, so they can't be reflected back to the enemy source. But the sound submarines emit is equally important to minimize. Seeing as a submarine equipped with a PBVD propel itself through the water at lower power levels, the engine's sound vibrations and water disturbances in its wake are greatly diminished, making it easier to sneak up on enemies and rain hellfire from the great blue beyond. Propeller design, particularly for military subs, are usually a closely guarded secret and are often covered up when in public view. But one of the submarines we know is currently using a type of PBVD technology is the German-made Type 212. It's unclear how many other subs are using this technology, and I guess if they do their jobs correctly, it's quite possible we'll never know. Tokamak. While we've already seen a machine harnessing the power of lasers to achieve nuclear fusion, another incredible machine helping us pave the way towards future energy generation is the tokamak. Instead of using an X-ray producing laser, a tokamak reactor is a donut-shaped device that uses magnets to create plasma for nuclear fusion. The heart of the tokamak is its donut-shaped toroidal chamber, into which different types of hydrogen gas are pumped. Located in the middle of the toroidal chamber, the central solenoid is a kind of electromagnet that feeds an electric current through its superconducting titanium wires. The electromagnetic forces generated by this current work to separate electrons from the hydrogen atoms floating around the chamber to form conductive plasma. This tasty, delicious, hot, burny, scary plasma is kept suspended in the toroidal chamber, thanks to an additional powerful magnetic field formed by a set of specialized metal coils wrapped around the walls of the tokamak. If that wasn't enough, a third set of coils are positioned around the outside edges of the tokamak for additional control of the plasma's shape and behavior. Altogether, utilizing the principles of electromagnetic induction like a fine art, the tokamak's shape means the plasma can flow around the donut-like tunnel on a constant loop, prevented from hitting the walls and losing energy. And because these bad boys need to run hot, like really hot, the suspended plasma is blasted with more high-energy hydrogen atoms from something called a neutral beam injector from outside the tokamak. As the uncharged atoms from one or more beam injectors are fired into the existing atomic soup in the plasma, they contribute their high levels of energy, causing the mixture's temperature to soar. Finally, high-powered generators outside the tokamak transmit electromagnetic waves into the plasma particles, which heats them up even further, kind of like a big, insanely powerful microwave oven. Eventually, the plasma reaches its intended heat of, now hold on to your seats for this, an astounding temperature of more than 270 million degrees Fahrenheit, aka the temperature region needed for fusion to occur here on Earth. Right now, there are around 50 operational tokamaks being used to experiment with nuclear fusion. But the one everyone's talking about is known as ITER, or the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. Upon its creation, this tokamak will be the largest in the world, with a 60-foot-high central solenoid weighing in at a gargantuan 1,000 tons. The ITER project began back in 1985, but the construction of the facility in Saint-Paul-le-Durance in southern France is still underway, with fusion experiments set to begin in 2035. When they do finally begin, some scientists claim it'll change the world. Who would have thought a donut could be the answer to all the world's problems? Donuts. Which of these incredible machines would you like to see up close? Do you know of any more awesome machines I should cover on this channel? Hey, let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.